Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Rhys Prosser Experience, and today we have a very special guest, Gary Anderson. How you going?
Not bad. How are you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Alrighty, so you're a member and the creator of WAPA, which stands for Western Australian Paranormal Research. Now, Gary, how did this all start? What made you want to start such a group, and what exactly is it that you guys do?
Well, it all started for me probably 40 years ago. I saw something as a child which, yeah, shook my foundation a little bit. I didn't know what it was. It was actually a flying saucer that I saw,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to make heads or tails of it, told my mum and dad about it, and they didn't believe me, as most people wouldn't. But it wasn't until it hit the news the next night that there'd been several sightings of a UFO in our immediate
Oh,
area
okay.
that they sort of believed me. And I wanted to find out more about it, which is weird for a young bloke, but
Yeah,
I always had one of those kind of inquisitive minds. So
yeah.
we would, whenever we go into the local town, my mum would take me into the library, and I'd ask the librarian, where do I find the books on flying saucers? And got the obvious looks that you would imagine. So after that, she said she'd point me out to a little section where you'd have UFOs in a book on the unexplained. So
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't a UFO book specifically, it was like an encyclopedia of the unexplained. So going through that, you had your UFO stories, you had your ghost stories, you had Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot. It goes on and on. And I'm one of these strange people that I call myself broad spectrum
Mm-hmm.
investigator. I love all of it.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of people niche themselves to UFOs or to ghosts and things
Mm-hmm.
like that. Excuse me. Now, obviously, if you want to try and investigate UFOs, you got to be at the right place at the right time, and they're
Yeah.
few and far between. So I lived in an old part of England at the time, and there were a lot of old houses around which had reported ghosts, and we had seen a couple as kids when we were younger. So that's where it all started off. It was more convenience than anything,
Yeah.
and we didn't take it super seriously as kids. The one thing you want to do is go and out scare each other. I can go into the spookiest house. I can go further
Yeah.
into it and things like that. And it went on from there, and it just kept growing and growing. The fascination and trying to make an understanding of what was actually going on. So as I went into adulthood, life took over for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was in a position in my life where I could actually start getting back into it. And I sought out other paranormal teams over here, of which there weren't very many at all.
Yeah.
And I had in my mind how I would like an investigation to happen. And basically, I came in with more gear than their entire team had.
Yeah.
And I had more experience than their entire team had. So I thought, look, I'm better off just starting my own group up.
Yeah.
So myself with a couple of mates at the time, we kickstarted WAPA off, and it went from there, built up. It's probably 12, 13 years ago now that we started the team up.
Yeah.
And it's obviously the membership has changed quite considerably through that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose our mission statement is to expose the public to what it's like to go out on a ghost hunt,
Yeah.
and to let them know that there are people around that you can talk to if you've got an issue without being looked at like you're crazy. Because if somebody says they've got a haunting in their house, quite often they'll stay quiet about it because of the stigma involved in being, one of these people like, ooh, he's got a
Yeah.
ghost and he believes in ghosts. And it still happens quite a bit today, but
Yeah.
it's a lot more mainstream with all the ghost hunting
Yeah.
shows that have been on. So, yeah, we do residential cases when we get called in to help people out. And we do public hunts probably every 6 to 8 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
There's no real set time gap between them, but we try to do several a year so that people who are involved in our Facebook page get an invite to come out, and they get to see the toys, get to see how it all works. And basically, it's a safe place for people like us to get to know each other, go out in safety,
Mm-hmm.
and chase the spookies.
Yeah. So I guess you sort of started this whole thing by seeing something you saw, not understanding it, no one believing you, to now what it is, and you're going out and helping people from seeing things that they don't believe and no one else believes them either. and you're kind of helping them through that, which is pretty cool. So talking about hunts, I was supposed to go on one. I think it was before, not the lockdown just gone, but the one before that. Or even the one before that, but I think I had something else on at the time, and I was so desperate to go, and I was devastated. And then the one I was meant to go to, which was the last one, and it was all good to go and everything, and then literally the day before it, bloody Mark McGowan, the god, announced we were going back into lockdown, so I was pretty sad about that. Hopefully, the one we're going on soon will be all good, but we're going to the Pinaroo Cemetery. Why are we going there? Is that somewhere that you've kind of heard that is haunted particularly, or is it just because it's a cemetery?
Sorry, you broke up a lot through that lot, but I think from the gist of it is you missed out through lockdown. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, and then I was just saying
Yeah.
that with the why are we going to Pinaroo Cemetery? Is it somewhere that you've heard is haunted, or just because it's a cemetery?
No, I mean, one of the things that I like to experience, especially with new people, is take them to creepy places. And everybody has this hoodoo about going to a cemetery specifically at night time.
Yeah.
And they're not what I would say is an overly haunted location, but you do pick up some stuff.
Yeah.
And it's a good place to take a lot of people because you don't want to take them into the most active locations because it could scare the crap out of a lot of people. So
Yeah.
we like to go a bit more low key, and cemeteries are definitely that kind of thing. It gives them the vibe. It exposes them to using the gear that we use, and from there, we can work out which people are what we would like to say capable of handling something a bit more spooky, and then we might take them to some of those more active locations where you're probably more going to see something a lot more active than just picking up an EVP or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's why we do the cemeteries and things. And in relation to Pinaroo itself, the reason we're going to do one there is simply because we've never been there before.
Yeah. Okay.
And we want to see how it goes.
Yeah, fair enough. So I went there the other day, because I wanted to get some like location shots for the intro, because I'm going to be doing a video, and just bringing my camera along and everything for it. And my nan and granddad, their ashes are actually in the wall there, which sounds terrible. Like their I don't know, memorial thing is in the
memorial
wall.
Yeah.
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 What are the chances, do you think, of them coming through if I'm there?
You never know. You never know. But, generally spirits don't like to hang around where they're buried.
Yeah.
They like to hang around their families and places that they used to love. So with you being there, it could be enough for them to come through. We have had that in the past in other locations where family members have come through and friends have come through. And in all honesty, one of our members, one of the experiences that actually got him right involved in it all was he came along because he was super interested, but I don't know how much he believed in it. And we were actually doing a dowsing rod session, it's very old school, that one. It's not like the electronic gear, it's old school analog gear. And
is that the one where you hold out the sticks in front of you and then it like moves forwards? Yeah.
Yeah, you give it certain instructions. So a lot of the new gear is called digital dowsing, but just go back to the basics, mate.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, he was holding, well, I was holding the rods initially, and these answers started coming through, and they seemed to really relate to what he was doing. He never told us anything about it or how it affected him and things like that.
Yeah.
And it came through, and it was very obvious to him and very specific to him that it was one of his mates, and that really brought him on board with the whole thing. And he still gets messages from his mate every now and then. And it's one of those stories where it can happen. You're not, I mean, any ghost hunt, you're not guaranteed of anything coming through at all.
Of course not.
The only thing you're guaranteed of is having a little bit of spooky fun with some friends in creepy places.
Yeah.
And that's what we say to everybody at the start of each hunt. You're not guaranteed to get anything because that's the whole nature of the paranormal, but you're here with people that are like-minded, and it's a safe environment where we can talk about what we want to talk about, and do the investigation stuff that we want to do, and you're not going to get laughed at.
Yeah.
And that's primarily what we're all about. And obviously, helping people with hauntings and things like that is key to everything. But exposing the public, like I said earlier, to the knowledge that we are out there and there are people to help. And obviously, people, quite often when I say help, it's just somebody that they want to talk to about it all. You know, they don't necessarily want you to come through and do an investigation and do a house clearing and all that. They just want some understanding. So quite often, a lot of the cases that we have are just people wanting to get some understanding of what's going on, and they're happy for these things to continue. You know, they're not necessarily violent or dangerous things, but things will be happening around the house, which is freaking them out.
Yeah.
And once you give them some clarification of what it's all about, they can make peace with it. You tell them how to deal with it, and happy days for them. And that's our job done, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. So, with the hunt, I've seen quite a few people online, you know, when you watch the ghost videos, people are like, don't interfere with ghosts, you know, you can bring one home or something. Is that possible? Or what exactly should I prepare myself for on the hunt? To protect myself, I guess.
It's a very personal question, that kind of thing, for every individual person. But I say, if you've got anything going on in your life which is bringing you down, it lowers your vibe. I know it sounds very hippie, but
Yeah.
when your vibe is lowest, that's when things can generally attach to you, and you can take them wherever. And keeping your vibrations up high, keep them positive, keep happy, just enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah.
And that's what I do when I go to these places, and I say I'm a bit like Teflon because nothing can stick.
Yeah.
But we have had cases where we've had to send people home because they weren't in the right frame of mind to go into these things, and they weren't happy at the time, but they do understand the reasoning behind it, and we are looking out for their safety in the long term, because you know, an attachment can be something benign or it can be something fairly aggressive, and you just don't want to run that risk. But we do the usual kind of things. You know, a lot of not just the girls, a lot of the guys, they'll bring crystals along, they'll bring holy water and different things like that.
Yeah.
Basically, anything that you want to bring that you have faith will protect you is what's going to take, because it's this power of thought. If you go in there totally open to it all and feel like you're vulnerable, that's enough for something to click on.
Yeah.
And you just go in there having that understanding. Like, it could be, you know, it could be a box of matches, it could be anything. If you have faith in your head that is going to stop them from clicking, it's that thought process going through your head that helps protect you.
Yeah, fair enough. So on the hunt, what sort of, I decided tying two questions in at once. What sort of equipment do you use? I know you mentioned the rods before, but what exactly do you use, and what do you do at a hunt? Because we're talking about hunts and everything, but unless you've been to one or seen them online, you don't really know what we're talking about. So what do you actually do at a hunt?
Well, it's like I said, we'll all meet at the location to start off with. We'll have a bit of a group chat, let everybody introduce themselves, and have a little bit of talk about what their individual stories are, because everybody comes into the paranormal with their own, like I like to say, origin story.
Yeah.
You know, there was always some event or some interest that brought them to where they are now. So we'll talk about that, and then we will talk about some of the gear that we use. And like I said, the reason we do our hunts the way we do our hunts at WAPA is we used to just put up, we're going to have a public hunt, we're going to be at X location on X day at X time. And we would expect maybe 10 people to turn up. And it was like that at the start, just small groups, and it worked well. But there was one time where it was a fairly small location that we were going, and we were expecting 10 people, and I think 52 people turned up. We actually filled the car park.
Yeah.
And that was like, holy hell, what do we do now? There was about 5 or 6 of us there.
Yeah.
So we had to split this group off into 5 groups of 10, 12, whatever it was, and send them to all opposite corners of the cemetery. So they were still in big groups.
Yeah.
And they were still protected, because obviously it's not the spirits you need to worry about. It's the the druggies or anybody else that might inhabit these places on a night time.
Yeah.
So safety is number one, and that's another thing that we do talk about not going off by yourself.
Yeah.
There's a specific story I could talk about a bit later on.
Yeah.
Which was it definitely gives clarification to why I said that.
Yeah.
But from there, we'll discuss the gear that we're going to be using. So obviously in a place like that, we can't use DVRs and all this heavy gear that we have set up like in a permanent fixed location.
Yeah.
It's all basically handheld stuff like EMF meters, voice recorders, thermal imaging cameras, SLS cameras. The list goes on, but it's all basically handheld stuff. And with the EMFs, we like to give them all, a couple of them, to hold on to themselves, so they don't feel like they're just there watching a show. They actually become part of the whole thing. And that's what they like. They like actually getting involved and seeing what it's all about. And when those K2 meters start to ping, you see some excitement in the people. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day.
And those, the K2 meters is to pick up like energy and that. And that's what a lot of people believe ghosts are, is energy. Is that right?
No, not specifically. The EMF meters are there to pick up disturbances in the electromagnetic field.
That's
they pick up. And no spirits. Well, it's a very hot topic, this one, but some say that they are energy. I don't have any definitive. That nobody has any definitive findings on what spirit actually is, but they do disrupt the energy field, and that's what these meters pick up. So if they pick up a disturbance, there's a likelihood something's going on around. So at the start of each hunt, we'll ask people to turn their phones off, or at the very minimum put them into airplane mode, so that there's no Wi-Fi signals or anything like that, which could give us any false positives. But it depends on how you want to look at the whole thing. I look at it as a spirit needs energy to manifest and to make things happen, and to do that, they need to draw energy in, and these meters will pick up those disruptions. That's why when you go to a haunted location and places like that, you get battery drain really quick. You get cold spots because they can literally suck the energy out of the heat in the air. It gives you that's where you get cold spots. You watch all the spooky films, and something's happening when they breathe out, and you get the big mist coming out their mouth and things like that. That's what that's based on. So
has that ever happened to you?
But then there's
How scary is that? Is there one point where you've been on a hunt and you've been truly terrified?
I wouldn't say terrified. Startled, yes, but not terrified. There was one, again, down in Albany, this was probably 10 years ago now, where I had an encounter with something that could only be described as poltergeist activity, and a few things happened there. And I was that startled that I went running around to the next room to get the guy that was in the next room around so he could have a look. To find out that he wasn't there. He'd chickened out in the middle of the night, and he'd gone to stay with everybody else in a different building. So I was in this isolation hospital all by myself. And I think that's probably what drew it to me, because I was the only one around. And your adrenaline pumps. I mean, this is what we go for. The one thing I hate is when you see these people that they go looking for ghosts, which is what we do. And as soon as something spooky happens, they run for the hills. And I said, no. That's what we're going to look. There's no point in finding something and running with that, trying to understand what it is. But being startled, getting your adrenaline pumping and things like that, that's a different story. You've got to get yourself back under control and then go back in, which is what I did. And nothing else happened after that. But it was definitely one of the one of my top 10 anyway.
So
top three, maybe that one.
What's a poltergeist? Did you see a figure, or?
No. A poltergeist, that's a German word for noisy spirit. Basically, lots of banging, and I suppose the definitive thing to classify something as a poltergeist is when things get thrown around a room, or there's that show Poltergeist, the film. You can walk in and find things stacked up weirdly, things are being moved, things like that, actually physically altering the what's going on in the house or wherever.
So
That's what.
yeah. So
Yep.
when you're on a hunt, do you sort of? I know a lot of people go into them sort of a skeptic, and honestly, I don't really know what I am now. I feel like I want to believe, like I really want to, but I feel like unless I've had my own personal experience, then I'm kind of not going to. Are you sort of in the headspace when you do a hunt, like trying to see if you hear the banging and that? Are you like, oh, that could be the wind, or does your mind automatically go to, nah, it's a ghost?
No, not at all. I'm what I like to term as a healthy skeptic.
Yeah,
I am skeptical of a lot of things, and because I have a history in the construction industry and things like that, I'm a logical thinker. I
yeah,
will explain every possible thing away that I can,
mm-hmm.
and then whatever's left, we go from there. Now obviously going back to this thing in Albany when I opened a door and a broom came flying at me, and I mean quite literally flying towards my head, and the glass
Yeah,
flew towards my head, and something actually dragged me down to the ground, and there was nobody else or anything in the room.
yeah.
That's not wind.
No,
you
no.
know? It,
Oh
not
man.
unless there was a tornado going through, but that would have left a little bit more damage than that.
Yeah,
But
exactly. And
no,
it wouldn't just
that's
move the
something
broom
that
and
I
that's it. Yeah,
no, it's not just like the broom fell over. The broom came
yeah,
straight up, and and then yeah, and the glass it was probably 3 or 4 meters. It flew, and
yeah.
it smashed all over the floor. And of course, I was barefoot, so
Mm,
it's not something accidental that might have happened. It flew, and yeah, it still to this day baffles me what that actually might have been.
yeah,
So yeah, but other stuff, I mean, there are silly little things to give you an idea. There was one summer where me and my mates from work, we went out for lunch to a Chinese restaurant, and it was a hot day, and we had this ice cold glass of Coke on the table,
hmm,
and just condensation and everything getting underneath it. Yeah, we actually started, or actually got it on film somewhere. This glass started moving across the table all by itself,
oh,
and that's a natural thing, but to somebody who's not analytical thinking,
yep,
that's a ghost moving that.
yeah,
So you have to take into account what's going on weather-wise, barometric pressure,
yep,
weather systems, and things like that. And in fact, when we do a proper investigation, we do take into account moon phases,
hmm,
everything you can think of, and we do this full report up, basically to try and find any correlations between different cases. So we can say, well, that happened at this one, that one, and try and get some kind of commonalities between the cases. And
yep,
to this day and age, there's probably not too many at the moment. It just seems totally random.
yep, yeah. Fair enough. Okay, so another question I've always, ever since I got into this, every single horror movie you watch, or except a few, all the paranormal like proof videos, or everything you see, it's always at night. And I've actually had Christy, who is a member of my family but is also a member of your group as well, on for an interview as well. And her one of her answers to why all this sort of shit only happens at nighttime was because it's easier to, because you have like more access to your senses, or it's easier to use your senses at nighttime. Do you think that's true? And is there any more you could elaborate on that?
That's 100%. You probably got that from me, actually. Uh, yes. No. Uh, Paranormal activity happens day or night.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no rhyme or reason to that. It just happens whenever.
Yep.
And what I say to people is it's easier to dismiss through the daytime because there's so many things happening. There's so many stimuli going through your mind. Your eyes. Your eyes are your primary sense
Mm-hmm.
for everybody, and so that's number one. Everything else dullens down. Now, when you talk to a blind person, that's their hearing is ridiculously good.
Yeah.
That's because they've lost their primary sense, so their
Yeah.
secondary sense comes to the top, and it continues on. So if we take light out of the equation by doing our investigations at nighttime,
Mm-hmm.
it heightens up things like your sense of hearing, your sense of smell, and
That's
things
true.
like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It's all good until somebody farts. That it becomes offensively obvious when
Yeah.
it's like that,
Yeah.
and funny at the same time.
Yeah.
But anyway, getting back on a serious note, so that's what we do. We will go out at night time, and then you can just put more into your senses, and you can actually pick up with your own body things that are happening.
Yeah.
That Christy will attest to this, and you'll hear this at the start of just about every ghost hunt that I go on. I say your body is your best instrument for any
Yeah.
ghost hunt, because it picks up everything that the instruments pick up. The instruments are just there so that you can pick it up on camera, and it's something good for the TV shows. But your body picks all the same things up. If you pick up an EMF, a fluctuation in the EM field, the K2 meters, the EMF meters will pick that up so you can see it.
Mm-hmm.
But your body, the hairs on your arms will stand up. You get goosebumps. That's your body reacting to fluctuations in the EM field.
Yep.
Obviously, you feel cold spots when you walk through a cold spot. That's the same as one of our digital thermometers. They'll pick up on that.
Yeah.
So your body can do everything that the equipment that we can do does, but we're trying to record it so that it doesn't just become a personal experience.
Yeah.
So that's why we have this gear, and if you want to try and take it to the scientific community, you get them to investigate, which is ultimately what we want.
Mm-hmm.
We're not out to prove the existence of ghosts. We're out there to prove that there is definitely something worth investigating.
Yeah.
And whatever the outcome will be. But until we can present them with something that the science field will go, all right, that's something valid, something measurable that we can work with, we've got no chance. So that's what we do. We're not out to prove the existence of ghosts. We're out there to capture as much evidence as we can.
Yeah.
And then when that elusive, really cool piece of evidence comes up that we can present to somebody, that's what we'll do.
Yeah. So I guess there's so much. Like, you can literally go on YouTube and search up ghost evidence, and there's millions of videos, right? And obviously there's groups like yours. I know you said you're not out to prove that ghosts are real, but there's a lot of people that are, and there's a lot of ghost groups that are. So why there's so much evidence, there's so many tools and everything and equipment, why do you think that there's no solid proof after people have been doing it for like years that ghosts exist?
That's a hard one to actually answer that. I mean, it's easy in some points and it's hard in others.
Mm-hmm.
In this day and age, faking something is so easy with everybody. When I started this out, there was no such thing as a personal computer.
Yeah.
And there was no such thing as a bloody mobile phone back then.
Yeah.
And you went out there and it was basic things like, you'll have a thermometer which wouldn't pick up crap, in all honesty, because they weren't digital back then.
Yeah.
You would have the dowsing rods, which, I mean, they go back hundreds of years. They've always been good for something, that picking up energy fields, picking up water flows underground and things like that. So there is a history of that working. But in this day and age now that everybody's got access to a home computer, they've got access to the internet, they've got access to Photoshop, to video editing programs and things like that. Faking something now is so easy and, in all honesty, so bloody good that any real evidence that people would pick up is generally going to get dismissed, lost in the mix.
Yeah.
And it's going to be hard. It makes life very hard for us. They say with UFOs and things like that, you go back 50 years, it was hard to fake a UFO. So that's why somebody would throw a hubcap in the air and try and get a photo of it and things like that.
Yeah.
That was about as good as you got with trying to fake something, even though there were reports of UFOs that go back not just hundreds, but thousands of years.
Yeah.
But in this day and age, you've got drones, you've got weird aircrafts and, digital. You can do such a good job faking things that it's really hard to do, and it takes an absolute professional to do it, and they're just not interested because it happens that much these days. So our life has got a lot harder. So that's why whenever we go out, we'll chalk it up as being a personal experience and things like that, and it was awesome for us. Unless we can verify something on at least 3 different pieces of equipment at the same time, it's not something that we would be able to present, really.
Yeah. Well, that was one of my questions, actually, that it must make it a lot harder to do these sort of hunts and, tell people that this is what I saw, when there's literally, for every piece of evidence you have that's real, there's another 3 that are fake that some person's made in their bedroom,
Oh, it's probably a lot more than that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously, you got all these like Ghost Hunters shows and everything. And I know you had the dude from the Ghost Hunters, so I won't talk smack about the show. But a lot of people think that stuff is fake, and you know, I used to watch it years ago. I watched like 3 episodes, and then I was too scared. But I was like 12, so probably not the right age to be watching that sort of thing anyway.
Look,
But yeah,
if you ever want to talk about something like that, Rob is definitely the person to talk to
yeah,
because he is so far against anybody that fake stuff. I mean,
yeah.
I was friends with Derek Okora, who was on Most Haunted for years, and some of the stuff that's happened on that show has not only been documented as being fake, but it's also very obvious. And it told us a few things behind the scenes which are alarming, considering they were presenting that show as realistic. You know, and yeah, I know about a lot of different shows that do it. So I don't actually watch a lot of those shows anymore. It's I was actually offered a show a few years ago. We were offered a show, and we were in talks with one. We even went as far as, well, lately, as far as it's been gone through the networks and everything like that. And the networks have given approval, but then COVID hit and it's all been put on hold. So I don't know if that's going to end up getting picked up or not. Oh, look at that. I keep disappearing in the background. But yeah, the way we're going to do it is, you know, it's got to be real if it's going to make it to the show. And that's ultimately what the issues are with a lot of these shows is if you look at the way they do it at Hunt and you look at the way the people without the cameras do a Hunt, it's very different.
Yeah,
you know?
I've noticed that.
They need to make it look appealing, exciting, something that's good that they can sell.
Because no one's going to watch an episode of nothing, you know? If nothing's happening, no one's going to watch it.
Well, exactly. You watch one of those shows and they'll have such an action-packed time, but if you look at it in reality, they've probably been there for 4 days. They've got hundreds of hours worth of footage to put into this 1 hour show. And some of the stuff that they present is absolutely garbage in my book. I mean, I'm not going to name a show, but when we present an EVP, we want something that's clearly audible and clearly understandable.
Yeah.
So we've got some good ones. But some of these TV shows, they'll pick up and we picked up an EVP, and all you'll hear is that's them saying, and it comes up in the little subtitles underneath.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I guess that
it's not.
Yeah.
You know,
that leads back to the I can't remember what it's called, and I always forget. But like the whole thing about if someone tells you that's what it says, your brain is like, oh yeah, you're right, that is what it says. So by putting the subtitles at the bottom of the screen, you're like, it's the whole Yanni and Laurel thing, you know. If you read either one, that's what you hear. But you know, so that makes it harder as well, because as soon as someone tells you that's what it's saying, you're like, your brain's like, oh yeah, you're right. So if you have subtitles at the bottom, it defeats the whole purpose. I guess that's why it's better to be there yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Or just let you listen to the audio raw and see what you make of it. You know? And that's why we won't present things like that. For us to present something as a valid EVP, you need to be able to hear exactly what it says and understand what it says.
Yeah.
You know, you might have to amplify it up because EVPs are generally in the background noise and they're very quiet. So you have to amplify and stuff like that, but you can't start totally changing the audio file and then putting your 2 cents worth, and you have to present it to people to say, what do you think it says?
Yeah.
And let them go from there and then form their own opinions.
So what's the most compelling piece of evidence you have from an EVP or something like that? Have you got anything that you're like, yeah, this 100% is like, or anything you've seen that's like, oh yeah, this is 100%, other than the broom? There's two pieces of EVP evidence which blow me away, which we've got over the years. And well, one of them, not even an EVP, it's what's called a disembodied voice. And years ago, we investigated on 2 occasions an old boys' home, an orphanage, and we were up on the top floor. This is what, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and we've got this on video. And all we did was amplify the audio. You could actually pick it up in the raw video to start off with, but then we replayed it and I amplified just to make it a little bit clearer. And it's
about 1 o'clock in the morning. We just out of nowhere. Luckily, we were recording on about 3 different devices.
Mm-hmm.
We picked up this voice going, "Mommy."
What? Say that again.
Mummy.
Oh, really? Is that the
Yep.
one on your YouTube channel?
Yep.
Well, I think I've seen that. That's or like that's crazy. What do you think
Yeah,
when that
that's
happens? Are you like, oh my god, what was that? Or
well, if you watch the video, we had to cut it short because the language that came out of us after that would never make any TV show.
yeah,
But yeah, it was I mean, that in itself is creepy, but then when you take into account that we were in an orphanage and the kids there obviously had lost their parents or
yeah,
something like that, and then to hear that, it's well, one, it's because it came out, it was a kid's voice. It was it was an emotional thing. It was we were excited as all get out, and yeah, it 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 blew us away, that one.
yeah,
And that leads me into the second big one that we got. Again, I'm not going to name the location because this was an invitation into a fairly historic Perth building.
yeah.
And I'll give part of it away, but I'm not going to try and give the whole thing away. It was in the middle of the night. It was after a major comedy festival had taken place because
Yeah.
they said they always have activity after one of these big stage shows. So we went in after that, and this point in time, there was myself and 2 of the female members on the stage. There was nobody else in the entire auditorium. The rest of them were in completely different parts of the building. And we were running an EVP session, and I think we did a little bit of a spirit box session at the time as well. But our psychic, she said she's picking up somebody around us. So we started, we had the voice recorders go. We started adjusting our questioning. And one of the questions we said was that, well, we said, "We know you're here." And we said, "Where are you?" And I shit you not, we've got it there. A male's voice, considering I was the only male there, there was 2 girls that were with us. We get this voice, it goes, "Behind you."
Oh, yuck! That's terrifying. Oh,
Yeah, well, we didn't hear it at the time, obviously. And
yeah,
when we finished that session, we all, because what we do is we break up into small groups and we'll do a different section each so that we're not all in the same room at the same time, just to try and minimize any kind of contamination.
yeah,
And then what we'll do is we'll meet up in the designated area, and then we'll split off into different areas. So once each of us has done the different areas, then we'll change the dynamic of the groups. We'll change the groups up and do the same thing.
yeah,
And when we all caught up, we just played back through it, and you could actually hear it just in the little voice recorder there. Obviously, before we even got it back and put the headphones into it, where it was a lot more clearer. It was that was a creepy one. And there was no questioning what it said. So to us, that was one of our best EVPs. Like I said, if you just hear a funny noise that sounds like it could be a word, we tend to dismiss those.
yeah. And do you still have that recording?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, cool. If you want to send it through, that would be sick. Cool. So
yeah,
obviously,
I've got it on one of my hard drives. So
awesome. Obviously you've been to a lot of places. You'd spoken about Albany, that one as well. What's somewhere that sticks out to you? Obviously you've been doing this for a while. What's somewhere that you particularly think is active or haunted, I guess?
there are a lot of places. I mean, I've been obviously places through the UK. There's lots there we could talk about.
Yeah.
Well, can't really talk about them. I was a lot younger when I was doing those sort of things, and not as seriously as what we're doing now. Not with the gear at all. It was just kids doing their thing. But been to Singapore, done the old Changi Hospital at Singapore. That I mean, it's been converted into a hotel now.
Yeah.
But some of the outbuildings are still there, and that's got a pretty good history behind it. But locally, I've been down as far as I said, Albany, up as far as Geraldton.
Oh, wow.
And we've been inland a fair way. So we've got a few places that we still need to see. But if we're talking to locals and they want to have a go at something, you're going to know what I'm going to say. The number one place to sort of check out is the old Swan View tunnel.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You know, it's public land, so you're allowed to go in there without getting in any kind of trouble.
Yeah.
And there's no electricity in there at all. So long as you've got all your phones and stuff like that in airplane mode, you can go in there and enjoy that place. It's a very interesting little place. There's a fairly dark kind of spirit that likes to is a bit of a bully at one end.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of nice spirits in there as well. So, well, that's from our findings. Obviously,
Yeah.
everybody's going to find something different.
When
But
when I spoke to Christy,
no.
she said the same thing that I can't remember if she said it on the interview or it was out, so I won't go into details just in case it was private. But I remember her saying that there was someone that was a bully at the end of the tunnel as well. So that's crazy hearing it from you as well. Obviously, it's not just one person, you know?
Oh no, it's not just one person. No, and to have 3 or 4 different people on a group that don't know each other at all react in the same way at the same time
Yeah.
to what was going on. You would look at that as at least a 3-point verification that for them all to have the same thing happen, something was actually going on. Like I said, I say I'm Teflon because I don't pick up. I do pick up on some things, but I don't pick up on a lot of things. And I think because I have that mentality that they tend to stay clear of me as well. So I'm kind of my own worst enemy when it comes to that. If I want to catch this paranormal activity, it's not going to happen because you got to do something really profound for me to take note.
Yeah.
But a lot of other people, don't want to say easier targets, but it's their defenses aren't at the same level as mine because I've been doing it for so long that stuff will happen to them. So they get the benefit of stuff happening, which I'm never getting. And well, on a couple of occasions, like I said, that one down in Albany when that happened, that was a whole load happening all at once, and no explanation for that at all.
Yeah,
no logical explanation. So yeah, it depends on how you come into it. If a person will come on one of our ghost hunts and they're a total skeptic, they're not going to get anything. They're just going to look at people and go, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You have to come into a ghost hunt, look at it as just having a bit of fun. You're going out to see some spooky places at night time, and with like-minded people, have a bit of a laugh. We do have a bit of a laugh with things. It's not all serious, these public hunts, because if you do a serious ghost hunt, it gets boring and people don't want to come back. So you have a bit of fun, have a bit of a joke, and sometimes it can be perceived as we're not taking things seriously. But what I've found is that it's that interaction with people where we're doing our own thing, we're having a bit of fun, that can draw some spirits in because they like the energy that's happening.
Yeah.
If people all go, we're in investigation mode, we're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
We're just going to wait, which we do sometimes. Quite frankly, it's boring.
Yeah.
So they go, yeah, we're just going to move on.
Yeah.
So I just say, no, we're going to have fun, and we're going to see where it goes from there.
Are you saying that you're having like the more of a skeptic and not letting things attach to you, and having not just being like, oh, that noise is a ghost? Are you saying that's a bad thing? I personally think that's probably the best mindset to be in if you're like the leader of this group, because then if someone's like, oh, this is that, and you can sort of dismiss it, and then that I feel like is getting more proof, I guess, and more like legit things instead of just you saying, oh yeah, you're right, that is, because that just seems dumb. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
I've come across people in my time where, you could hear a frog fart from 30 meters away and it's a bloody ghost. And I'm my own worst enemy in that I'm a pretty solid filter. Before it makes it through to the other side of something paranormal, it's got to go through all the filters.
Yeah.
And probably 80%, 90% of the stuff doesn't make it through. And even if it does make it through, it still doesn't mean it's paranormal. It just means that we've gone through all of our different explanations for it, and we still haven't found anything that's a logical reason for us picking up what we picked up. It doesn't mean it's anything paranormal. It could be. We don't know. It just means it's hit that little section of evidence that is interesting. It's made it past the boring, mundane, normal, everyday life filters, and we've got something that's interesting. So they're the ones that we then start to investigate.
Yeah. So talking about haunted places and ones in Perth. I feel like whenever you start Googling or whenever you start talking to people about it, one of the first places, and what I thought you were going to say, is the Fremantle Prison. And I know you guys have stayed there overnight. Tell me a bit what that was like, because I've been on a I don't know if you've been on the Torchlight tour.
Yeah, I've done the
Yeah.
torch tour. Yeah.
I don't, if anyone hasn't done it, skip this bit because I don't want to spoil it, but I was incredibly disappointed. Like, it was so fun. It was really fun, but I was, that was when I first started getting into all this sort of stuff. And I was like, even obviously you can't guarantee things are going to happen every time. That's what you're saying. But when I went in there and like, there was all these props and things and an actor, and I'm like, what is this? I wanted to like come and experience it for myself, and nothing's going to happen while you're like doing this sort of thing, but you obviously have done a proper overnight stay. Tell me a bit about that.
Well, going on to the torch tours, they're a tourist thing. It's there about giving people a little thrill and a little bit of a jump scare and stuff like that. It's telling some ghost stories in a creepy place at nighttime.
Yeah.
It's not an actual paranormal investigation. I approached the prison a long time ago, and we were actually the first ever paranormal team to be given overnight access.
Oh, righto.
And so we've done 2 complete overnight investigations there. Without going into too many details, there's not a lot of activity there. There are lots of there's lots of residual stuff happening there, which not specifically an active, intelligent haunt as such, but lots of residual energy there. But I do remember on one occasion we had a security guard with us on both visits, because obviously they have to do it due to the historical value of the place. And they were both February nights. In fact, it was my birthday for both nights. So I spent 2 of my birthdays locked up in prison. I tell people that, and they just give me the weirdest look. And I go, no, it's not what you think.
Yeah.
But you'll know it because you've been there. We were outside of the cell block 4, the life division wing.
Yeah.
And we were out in that main back, looking back to, where you first come in. And there's a guard tower over the top of the visitors bay.
Yeah.
We were looking back over there, and we were all watching it, and we were saying, are you seeing what I'm seeing? And we were all like that. And we were actually watching a silhouette of a person moving back and forward. And
Holy shit.
We actually said to the prison guard, I said, are you the only security person on? And he goes, yeah, I'm the only one here. And I said, well, who's that up there? And he looked up, and he was as mesmerized as the rest of us. And this is where it's a bad thing for us being a paranormal team. We were watching it for probably 5 minutes before I said, has anybody got a camera on this?
Yeah.
And then everybody jumped into, let's get the camera. And by the time we came back, it was gone. And when I presented our findings to the prison board,
I'll interrupt you just there, just before you say that. I think I know exactly what you're going to say, because when we did the tour, and the reason why I reacted so like crazy with that, as soon as I start it, they tell a story about how a dude walks along that top thing there. And so when you say that you saw that in real life, and it's not just the tour guide saying that, that's crazy. Is that what you were about to say?
No, I was about to say they told me that the security guard quit his job the next day.
Oh, okay.
He was so freaked out by what he saw that I think we left the prison, because we parked our cars in the prison, so we had to go in through that side gate.
Yeah.
And he had to open the gates for us all to get out, and he couldn't wait to get out. I think it was about 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. It was light, but he couldn't wait to get out either. And then we had to put all of our findings together, and we presented them to the prison board. And they say, you do realize that security guard quit the next day?
That's crazy.
He asked if he could go on to just day shift. And they said, well, no, because you have to work the rotating shifts. So he quit his job. And the second time that we did it, we did another one a couple of years. Well, it was the next year, I think it was. And same thing. But because we'd done such a good job the first time, and we proved ourselves, we were originally locked down to Division 4. We had the whole main cell block, not the women's, but the whole main cell block to ourselves for the night.
Yeah.
So it opened up the possibilities of the places that we could investigate. So we went down, did some stuff in the old kitchens area and things like that, and run a few different experiments. And we had all the gear out. And this, I shouldn't be saying this, especially if somebody from the prison board starts to watch this, but the security guard was so interested in what we were doing that we said, "Do you want to have a go with the K2?" So we gave him a K2, which is a very basic piece of equipment.
Yeah.
And I think we lost him for about 2 hours.
Oh.
He just disappeared doing his own bloody thing. And he come back and he goes, "Guess what I picked up?" And he was more excited than the rest of us. So
Yeah.
he became another member of the team. He wasn't a security guard. He was out doing his own thing.
Yeah.
So that it goes to show that a lot of people will poo-poo us ghost hunters and things like that.
Yeah.
Paranormal investigators, whatever you want to call us. But you take them aside and in the quiet, and they go, "I'll never admit to this, but yeah, I'm right interested in it all." But the hoodoo of being labeled a wacky ghost hunter is too much for a lot of people.
Yeah, fair enough.
But they do have the interest, and they just keep it to themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. So, another place I've ever probably one of the first places I ever thought about with ghost stuff is Fairbridge Village, and that's just probably like 5 minute or 10 minute drive away from Pinjarra down south, I think it is.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's
and I've
10,
been
15 minutes from Pinjarra.
Yeah, and I've been there quite a few times now. I went there one time to when I was doing this sort of with my mate, and we kind of had a bit of a piss take with it. And it's a very funny video, which will be coming out soon, hopefully. But then the second time I went up with my parents, and the first time we went down there, we didn't obviously get anything because it was just us two, and I don't think I'd even heard of you guys at that point. We didn't have any equipment or anything, but it was only just a little bit raining, and honestly, I've never experienced anything as like creepy or spooky as that place. I don't want to diss the place, just to clarify that there are lovely people out there and you should go and stay down there. But the amount of things I've heard online and stories I've heard from that place, and I know you guys have stayed down there a couple of times, is that right?
Yeah, we have. We actually, if you go down there, there are 3 cabins in particular which are haunted or reportedly haunted. The main one, and you can even Google this if you want, Clive. Is ultimately the most active one, and that's the one that we stayed at for the 2 nights.
Yeah.
Not in a row. There was probably a 3-month gap between the 2 nights that we stayed there.
Yeah.
And we mixed the team up a little bit, so we had different people there when we were doing it. And without going into details, we do have some video footage of things that happened there, and I've still got a lot of footage I've still got to go through because we had the DVR set up with 8 cameras. But I will say this: there are certain members of my team which refuse to go back there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Again, it's like all things. If you go into a place like that, if you are just there as a social group and you don't know the history of the place, or it might be a little bit creepy, you're not taking note of specific things, and little things will happen, and you'll dismiss them because that's what you do. But when you do what we do, and we take note of those little things, and when a spirit realizes that you're picking up on them, that's when they really go, okay, well, it's not a waste of time with this person.
Yeah.
They'll step it up. And it stepped up to a point where, there are several members of my team which go, I don't think I want to go back there, because not even so much the paranormal activity that actually happened there, they started affecting the way team members talk to each other and reacted to each other.
Oh.
And that's stepping into a completely different level, that when it can actually affect the way people react to each other. And it wasn't in a good way. Everything was going in a slightly negative way. There was tensions, which you know most of the team, and you know that there's no tensions in a group like that. And for these things to happen, that's what scared them more than the paranormal activity. It's the subtle things that can really screw with a person's mindset. Yeah. So as a result, they don't. A lot of them don't want to go back there.
Yeah. So would you say
I love the ghost hunting side?
Yeah.
But they don't want to have that getting your head messed with stuff.
Yeah. Fair enough. So another thing, there's a lot of things that got me into this sort of stuff, but one of the, I don't know if have you ever heard of Isaac Butterfield?
I've heard the name.
Yeah. So he's a stand-up comedian, but he also has done quite a few episodes of like ghost hunting and that sort of stuff. And his first video they did at a prison in New South Wales. I can't remember what it was called. I'll link it in the description. But
Yeah,
ever since
I think I know the one you're talking about.
Maitland Jail, I think it's called. Is that yeah?
That's one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. And ever since I watched that, that was the first thing that got me into like ghosts and stuff. And then I went along to, I watched my favorite movie of all time, or my one of two, The Conjuring. And obviously that's about Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are real people. And I think all of the stuff in the movies is based on real case files. And the Annabelle doll was obviously real. Doesn't look anything like it does in the movies because it's not as creepy.
No, it's a Raggedy Ann doll. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm friends with Johnny Zaffis, and I was friends with Lorraine Warren as well.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we lost her a few years ago. She was a beautiful woman, beautiful spirit.
Yeah.
But yes, and again, it's anything to do with the paranormal's controversial in mainstream. Oh God, hang on, my phone's ringing. Hang on, better hang up.
It's all good.
Sorry, I didn't expect that. I thought I was on silent mode.
It's all good.
I'll have to go in a minute anyway. But it's look where I was going. I got distracted.
Do you want me to ask the question again?
No, it's all right. The Raggedy Ann doll is very real, and a lot of what they do is always going to be what any of us do. It's always controversial, but they were at the top. They were the top of the game, and they were the ones that were most well known. A lot of the biggest cases that you hear about, the Amityville Horror, the haunting in Connecticut, they were all things that they investigated.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you were friends with Lorraine. What was I assume? So you obviously met her in real life, I assume.
No, just through online stuff. I never actually got to meet her in person, but we chatted a few times. And but she's a very hard lady to get, so it wasn't a lot. But I have spoken to her a few times, and I would share some evidence with her, and she would give me her insights on a few things. Yeah.
So what was that like, being friends with? She's probably the most, I don't know, well-known ghost investigator, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, she was still going until, she retired over the last few years, but a TV show that, if you want to see her in action, is, I don't know if you've seen a show called Paranormal State.
Okay.
And that's one, I have a few issues with it purely because of the fact that everything turned out to be demonic, but it was the show that reopened my love for the paranormal. Like I said to you earlier, I took a break for a while because life got in the way.
Yeah. And
then I got back into it, and that was basically the first show I'd ever seen. Yeah. And I watched that. I watched, Ghost Hunters International with Rob, and I watched the first couple of seasons of the big one that all the girls love, and that's Ghost Adventures.
Yeah.
But that's the one I was sort of hinting at when a lot of the EVPs are like, and they make stuff out of it.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've seen past season 3 of that.
Okay.
And I think they're up to something like 10 or 12 or something now. But I was friends with Aaron from that show, but mainly because he started his working life in the Harley Davidson shop, and I have a Harley, so we had a few different things to discuss. But I keep to myself, doing my own thing. I don't like to watch a lot of the TV shows because I think they're pathetic. In fact, when when the SLS camera came out, and I think it was Mike on the team, he had one, and that was the first time I'd actually seen one, because I'd never seen any of the shows with an SLS camera on it, and it's yet to hook me. Everything that I've seen with an SLS camera, I've been able to dismiss, but some people swear by them, and they're entitled to that opinion. But
what's that SLS
it's not something
camera?
I would. It basically uses the sensor off the front of a Wii, so it picks up motion.
Oh, right, yeah.
If you actually, it's funny enough, when an SLS camera is running, if you have like my infrared night vision camera, if I'll be filming with that, you can actually see the whole grid that this thing puts out.
Yeah.
And then it records motion, and it comes up like a bit of a stick figure, the old
I've seen that,
stick figure drawings.
Yeah.
And you can get some good stuff, but everything that I've seen, it kind of ties in with there might be a pole somewhere, or there might be a table leg somewhere, or this, that, and the other, and it latches onto those kind of things. So I've not seen anything on that yet, which I can definitively say, well, it's not a pole, it's not this, it's not that. I don't have a valid explanation for what it's picking up.
Yeah.
Every bit of footage I've seen so far, there'll have been something there that I can dismiss it as that's just picking up that by accident, and it's a misidentification on the camera's part.
Yeah.
But you never know. That piece of footage may turn up one day, but I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, fair enough. So this will be my I'm gonna tie a few questions into one as my final question. And this is probably a stupid question, but if you had to right now stop investigating everything with the evidence you've got so far, do you believe in ghosts? And if not, or even if yes, what do you think happens when we die then, if ghosts exist, or if they don't?
All right. So you're tying 3 or 4 questions into one.
Yeah.
I'm going to tie 3 or 4 answers into one.
All right, sounds good.
Or I'm going to tie one answer into 3 or 4, if you want to put it that way. There's no one explanation for the paranormal. It can be several different things. And in my time, I've actually come up with several different theories on things in relation to things like residual hauntings, which is where the same thing happens over and over again in the same location. Yeah. It's like a recording. And that's exactly what I put it down to. If you go back 100 years and stuff like that, when they used to paint the walls, they used to have lead in the paint. So it's a heavy metal. Yeah. It's much like the old cassette tapes that you used to get, where they were called magnetic tapes, and they used to record information onto them. Well, I think the same things happened. If the set of atmospheric conditions are right, they'll record something that's happened basically into the paint. Yeah. So then later on, when the same conditions happen again, it's like hitting play on your cassette recorder and it replays what's happening. Yeah. And what they say is, well, it's getting see-through and it's getting faint and stuff like that. Well, what happens when you re-record over something, or if you paint over that? Of course, you're diminishing, so it deteriorates in time. Yeah. So that spirit then looks see-through and transparent, and vice versa, and it all goes from there. So that's one of them. Then you've got your active haunts. Some of the stuff that we've picked up in the time, it almost leads itself towards going into parallel dimensions or multiverse theory and different things like that. And, paranormal is a broad spectrum term, which encompasses a whole different range of things, but just narrowing into the haunting, I think haunting is a fairly umbrella type term as well. And there's several different experiences and different things that it could be. And I don't think there's any one answer for any specific overall thing to what the paranormal is. There's a number of different things. So do I think ghosts are real? I've experienced things that tell me there's definitely something going on. Yeah. There's something there. So by that, I'd say yes. Something is definitely not right. Is it my uncle Eddie or whatever coming back to say hello or this, that? I don't know. It's what we're trying to do is find the right amount of evidence so that the scientific people will start to research it themselves. Yeah. And they have the means to go a lot further into it and get a lot better answer for that question than what we are. So ultimately, what it could be something very natural that we just haven't experienced yet. You go back 500 years, everybody thought the world was flat, and you were a heretic if you said otherwise. And people still do. Until science proved that we were floating around on a ball. Now it's common knowledge. So what we want to do now is get science to start looking into the paranormal field and give us some answers to what it is. And then, in 100 years' time, what we consider a ghost now is everyday life. Then, that's all we're after. We're out for answers, but a lot of the answers we can't pick up ourselves. So we want to come up with enough evidence to make the science people step up and take in the fight. Join the fight to get those answers. Yeah,
fair enough. Well,
that's what we're doing.
on the topic of multiverse, I would love to sit down and have a chat about that. Trust me. But I might tie it up there. But thank you so much for coming on for an interview today. And if anyone would like to hear more from Gary, you have a podcast, you can see it in your background, called the Paranormal Bikers Podcast. And there'll be a link in the description. And you've already done a few episodes already. So everyone go and check it out. Once again, thank you so much, Gary. And I'll see you at the hunt, where I will no doubt shit my pants.
Well, don't do that, because that goes back into the whole fart thing. We can't handle those
true.
smells when we've got our senses enhanced.
Yeah, fair enough.
But no, thank you for having me. And yeah,
it's all right.
If you're interested, look up the West Australian Paranormal Researchers on Facebook. Just hit join, or you can go onto our Paranormal Bikers page and listen in on our podcast. And we're sure to have you. We'll have you on our show sometime, and we'll chat to you about your experiences when you come out in a couple of ghost hunts with us.
Yep. Sounds good. All right. Thanks for listening.
Take it easy, mate.
Cool. Cheers.